Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our next Demand Generation Hug event. My name is Miranda Jenkins, and this is Emilio Garcia, and we are with Boundify, which is a demand generation agency located in Greenville, South Carolina, but we're fully remote. And we are a HubSpot partner and run the demand generation HubSpot user group. So if you're joining just based on like being interested in the topic, you can check out the Demand Generation Hug page and kind of see our other events that we've done. And if you're interested in demand generation topics, then join the Hug and you'll get notified of all of our events in the future. I'll go ahead and jump into our presentation this morning. We always do a short presentation in the beginning to talk through the topic a little bit, and then we actually jump into the platform and kind of click around and show you where to see everything on the back end of HubSpot. So, Emilio, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, Miranda.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be talking about CPQ tools in HubSpot. And again, this is Emilio Garcia. My name is Miranda Jenkins. So today we're going to talk through what CPQ is and why it matters for HubSpot users, some of the CPQ capabilities within HubSpot, how to integrate third-party solutions, and then some best practices for getting started. And then we'll go through if you have any questions and then jump into the platform and again, kind of click around and show you what we talked about actually in the platform. So first off, what is CPQ? It's an acronym that stands for Configure, Price, Quote, and it's a software that helps simplify the process of building complex quotes and then pricing them accurately and then routing them for approvals. And it frees your sales reps up to spend more time actually talking with customers and closing deals because it helps, standardize and speed up that whole process. So again, the C is for configure, which consists of choosing the right product mix from your product library and your product options, and then product, unique product bundles for customers. The P is for price, which consists of applying pricing tiers, discounts, rules around your pricing and discounts, and then currency conversions, and doing that whole process automatically and kind of setting up the framework on the back end so that it's automated moving forward. And then lastly, the Q is for quote, which allows you to generate a professional branded quote instantly and send it off for e-signature, and just keeps the whole process of creating quotes consistent and as automated as possible. So what does CPQ solve? Well, first of all, time kills deals. If it takes too long to generate a quote, then your deal can stall and go cold. And you can see the stat at the bottom from HubSpot. Roughly 86% of B2B deals stall at some point in the buying process. So just having a CPQ process nailed down can help eliminate the possibility of having your deals stall and your quotes take a long time. And then second, pricing errors are going to cause your sales reps to have to go back and rework and recreate a quote, and it just looks bad, reduces trust with the customer when they get a incorrect quote and they have to recognize the error, and then you have to go back and create a new one. And then third, complex products and bundles overwhelm manual CPQ processes. And it just makes the sales reps, it puts a lot more of the work on the sales reps back and takes a lot longer because they're kind of doing the decision making on pricing and bundles of products. Whereas when you set it up with a CPQ process, it's already predefined. And then lastly, discounts applied inconsistently hurt margins, again, when it's not a framework set up where every sales rep is following the same process and it falls on their back to make decisions for every single customer, then it just becomes inconsistent. So why set up your CPQ process in HubSpot? Well, first of all, if you're using HubSpot as your CRM, then it keeps all that information in one platform. So your quoting is happening where your deals live in the CRM, which results in cleaner data. Your products, prices, and discounts live in the CRM. So it's going to lead to more accurate reporting. HubSpot also has workflow automation, so you can trigger your approvals, tasks, and emails based on what's happening with the quote that is also living in HubSpot. And then they also have native payment options, so you can set the guardrails in HubSpot for your pricing and your discounts without slowing reps, and then send the quote off with a native payment link on it, all within the HubSpot ecosystem. So now we're going to talk through some of the features in HubSpot for CPQ. These are features that are native in the HubSpot platform. So for the configure step, first and foremost is building a customizable product library. So directly within HubSpot, you can build a product library, add in your product titles, descriptions, SKUs, pricing tiers, reoccurring revenue options, and then it lives in your product library and you can easily add products into quotes, which you'll see in real time when we go through the platform. And then another feature is approval workflows. So you can create logic-based approval workflows that route quotes for signatures based on the deal size, discount thresholds, and other custom criteria. This is a feature, the approval workflows is a feature directly in Commerce Hub, but you do have to have Commerce Hub Pro or Enterprise, and it's kind of like a pre-built workflow that makes it really easy to set up. If you don't have Commerce Hub Pro or Enterprise, you can still set up workflows to do this. It would just be a little bit more manual where you're building it from the ground up in the workflow section. And then lastly, there's connected analytics and forecasting. So you can view the reporting analytics directly in the Commerce Hub dashboard, similar to how you would see like on the ad section of HubSpot in the Marketing Hub, where there's, the reporting and dashboard section that you can pull all that information in, but then you're also seeing the analytics specifically for that in the Commerce Hub. And that includes analytics on documents, so you can track the engagement on your quotes and proposals, including how many times it was viewed, downloaded, and then the time spent on specific sections, which can give you some insights into your customers. All right, and then pricing. Native within HubSpot, there's flexible pricing models. So you can apply different pricing structures, including tiered pricing and volume pricing, subscription models directly within your product library when you set it up. And then you can pull that automatically into your quotes. There's also automated tax and discount rules. So again, in the product library, you can set up global or regional tax rules and guidelines and rules for discounts, at the line item or the total quote level in the product library so that they're standardized and consistent. And again, it's like set up so that all of your sales reps are going off the same information, applying the same discounts, all of that. And then lastly, there's interactive pricing tables. So you can actually provide the customer with an interactive pricing table when they receive the quote. So they can go in and select different options or quantities, and then the section in the quote will automatically do the price calculation. And then for quoting, first and foremost is the custom branded quote templates within HubSpot. So you can create professional branded templates for your quotes that maintain consistency among all of the proposals. And then you can build the quote attached to a deal from the very beginning, and then it'll automatically pull in all of the information from that deal into the quote template. So your sales rep has the option to, choose from predetermined branded templates that have been approved. They attach it to the deal, and then it kind of automatically generates that quote for them, and then they can, make tweaks from there. There's also an AI-powered quote generation tool now where you can use AI to generate and draft your quotes and cover letters or executive summaries. This does require Commerce Hub Professional, though, to use that feature. And then the HubSpot native payment collection feature, you can accept the payment directly on the quote through HubSpot. And then the closing agent, which is a feature of Breeze AI within HubSpot. It's currently in beta, but it's a 24/7 AI agent that you can set up that'll respond to your buyer questions about quotes, pricing, all of that, which just improves your responsive time and reduces friction on customer questions and all of that. The integrations that are within HubSpot that can help you with your CPQ process. Some of the popular ones are Quote Happily, PandaDoc, Deal Hub, and RevOps, and I kind of put in the their best features. Everything we've talked about before this, it's all native CPQ features within HubSpot. But if you have a really complex catalog or pricing structure, multi-currency rules, or your business is just scaling rapidly and you're building out a really involved CPQ process, you might outgrow the HubSpot, the native features, and you need more capabilities. That's when these integrations come in and are great to give you some more flexibility within HubSpot and kind of amplify the native features. And you would just connect it the same way you would any other integration in the settings and integration section. All right, and then lastly, just a couple best practices to keep in mind if you're getting started with CPQ in HubSpot. Number one is just to set the guardrails in HubSpot to keep reps fast and consistent and ensure that they stay within the guidelines when creating quotes. And what I mean by this is just take the time to set up the rules we talked about, like the when you apply discounts, how much the discounts are, the tax guidelines, all of that. Take the time to set it up in HubSpot, which again, when we go through the platform, you'll see how to do that. It's very easy. But it just takes the decision-making off of the sales rep, and it's predefined, set up, and they're all working off of the same information. Start with a few quote templates and make them really branded, clean, how you want them, but then you can also make them modular for flexibility so that the sales rep is starting out with a branded template, but then they have the ability to tweak it and tailor it specifically to that customer. Training, if you're introducing this new process, don't overlook taking the time to do some in-depth training with your sales team, just so that they're using the tools and workflows within HubSpot to their max capability. And then create and review your dashboards and analytics, and to help you improve the process over time. All right, so now we'll jump in and kind of walk through the platform. I'll hop out and stop sharing since I can't see anyone when I'm sharing. But I did want to say really quick before I jump out of the slides, you will receive this slide deck with the recording after the event wraps up. And we always include this slide at the end that includes some HubSpot resources around the topic that we're talking about. So these are some great HubSpot resources, lessons that kind of dive into the nitty gritty, like step by step, here's how you do it, and then some help articles. So you'll get this after and you can review it.
Before you jump into it, I wanted to add, Miranda, and I know that, probably I should have this at the very beginning. I always love to reference what this functionality is for, right? For who. And it's very the context that I would like to add, and hopefully for all of us that are watching or listening this, you are, B2B marketers or related to a B2B function, right? It can be B2B sales, because the feature will only make sense to someone that is dealing with a specific kind of B2B service or product. So as you know, we do it all the time with our services, right? With demand generation. B2B usually goes slower than direct to consumer in terms of digitalization, right? So when you are thinking about D2C transactions on the web, the best partner that a company might have might be something like Shopify, right? In one platform, you have the web experience. And then if someone is interested to buy, you have a completely digitized process that barely requires humans, right? You select your products from a catalog, you have the prices, you select your sizes, you put it on the card, you start the checkout process, you buy, and that triggers on the same platform the next steps of delivery, right? You get the address and someone is sending over your product right away. It's a seamless experience. And when you flip the script to B2B, there's something like that already for low transaction value B2B products or services. So think of B2B SaaS, right? Asana, HubSpot for lower tiers is a great example of that. You go to the website, you have the pricing, you select your, how many users, how many seats, and then you put your credit card and you buy. And that experience for B2B is great, but still for larger deals where you cannot buy directly on a web experience, we still have a very cumbersome process, right? You still need to reach out on a form, have a conversation, and then a sales rep, with the help of maybe some technical field sales people, will come up with a quote that they will reflect on a proposal, and then it goes back and forth with the buyer. That's where, as Miranda is saying, well, there's discounts, there's tax implications, there's currency implications depending on the deal. And obviously it has to be agreed upon. And usually that requires signatures because it's a big deal. It's not something that you can just back off. There's long-term commitments, things like that. And finally, obviously, you want to store all that in some place. So nowadays, the challenge is that even when this has progressed a ton, and there's already great CPQ tools out there, as Miranda shared on the integration, it's still very fragmented because, for example, there are great tools for tracking documentation like proposals and NDAs and the actual contract or the purchase. PandaDoc is a great example of that. There are great tools for managing payment and subscriptions at different levels. You can go to the source, like something with Stripe, and there's some other platforms that will manage very well subscriptions like Sora, or even tools from Soho will do those things. But for a marketer or for this one is more for rev ops, right? It's more for a revenue operations person or admin. Um, Managing those extra systems has a challenge because now you start the sales process in HubSpot, the lead, the deal, and then you jump into all these other tools to go through to the pricing proposal approval process, and then you jump back to HubSpot to close the deal and maybe go again out to manage the delivery of a project or a large engagement. So I think that while this CPQ tool that HubSpot has is still in their initial stages, right? Commerce Hub is one of the newest hub. It still needs a lot of polishing, a lot of complexity that needs to be added there to be called truly a CPQ platform, full-fledged platform. And this is not me saying that. Actually, I participated in a session with the product lead of the product, and he is the one that said, like, this is still work in progress in so many areas. But I think it's a step in the right direction, because as Miranda was sharing, once you have a tool that is inside HubSpot, then you don't have to do extra work for branding, for example. The proposals, the pricing tables, everything will looks like the rest of the experiences that a user will have for your pages and websites. You can add it to pages very quickly. Obviously, you can sign from there, and the biggest benefit is that whatever rules you set up inside HubSpot, and the flow of approvals and all that will trigger the next stages of your deals, which is a big one, right? So if I have stages and I want to track when someone gets a proposal, when someone signs it, and stages like that, I can tie those events to deals, and that way the flow of the deal matches the flow of the documentation or the process of the CPQ. So I think those are great benefits, and I will invite everyone to start, getting dipping their toes into the functionality. As Miranda is saying, if you have a simpler implementation, a handful of products that are not super complex, those are the right places to start, moving little by little and waiting for the platform to mature so you can add more complex scenarios over time. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll jump into the platform and show you guys the product library and how to build quotes. If you have any questions as we go along, feel free to drop them in the chat. And Amelia, you can tell me that there are questions to answer. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is where all of those functionality, like where that lives in HubSpot, the Commerce Hub here on the side. So we'll jump into products first, which is how you build out your product library. So this is your product library. You can create new ones here in the corner. And this is where it'll show you give your product the name, the SKU, a description. You can set the text category, the type of product that it is, add an image for the item, set up the billing frequency, configure the price. There's the flat rate pricing, and then there's the tiered pricing that we talked about. So this is where you kind of set up those guardrails that I mentioned, where when you're setting up all of these rules at the product level in the product library, then it's going to apply, across the board with all of your sales rep when you add them to quotes. So I'll show you one of the examples that we have set up. This is a example of an onboarding package, which is a service. It's a one-time billing frequency. You put the pricing in, and then you also can put in the price of the unit and then the cost. So it'll show your, the revenue you can make from it in the back end. So that is the product library. There's also the import feature where you can import if you have if you have a product library built in another system, you can import it instead of having to create them all manually.
Yeah, I want to add to that one some little nuances for everyone to follow up on this. This is a full-fledged object, meaning you can add extra properties from the one that come by default, which is useful if you have properties that you have on another platform. The other thing that I think is super relevant to highlight, as you are showing here, Miranda, is that the fact that the product can be a one-time thing or something that you charge on a monthly, weekly basis, or even something that lasts for a specific period of time, is not just for showing up this to the client. It actually triggers invoices and subscriptions and payments. So if you actually want to charge on a periodic basis on HubSpot, you can do that through some of the features that Miranda will show up shortly after. And so I think that's very powerful. And finally, is the other great thing about these products is that it's something that you can embed on a web page, right? So some choosing those criteria, someone can purchase directly, which will be more like that SaaS experience or that, like Shopify experience. But obviously, products typically get added to quotes, and that's where you can mix and match when you have more complex scenarios.
Yeah. I'll jump into the quotes now so you can see how you add it in. So there's the Commerce Hub and then quotes. So I'll go ahead and just start showing you how to create a quote from the beginning, like from scratch with your template. So right from the beginning, the very first step is you choose a deal to associate it to. So it'll list all of them and you choose them, and you can see here you already have kind of your branded template and everything. And then it automatically is going to pull in the buyer information from your CRM. You can choose which contact you want to address the quote to. It's going to bring all of the contacts that are associated to that deal. And you can, include the associated company. And then it's going to have your information. This is going to be tailored to the sales rep in their portal, and then their company and everything. And then the line items, this is where you are going to select the items from your product library. So let's say this is going to be for an onboarding package, a basic CRM package, and then they want to add on the AI sales assistant. So we'll add that to the quote. And then you can add in for if the quote is going to require a signature. We'll use the e-signature. You can check which of the contacts that are associated to the quote are required to include a signature. The payment collection, we'll choose one of these. And then it's going to show you your template. You're going to review it and then create the quote. And I'll jump out of this. Anything you wanted to add to that process, Emilio?
No, just to highlight that you said it so fluidly, right? It's like it looks very simple, and hopefully everyone watching here can appreciate all the things that you will have to do if you want to do this with integrations, right? Let me put you examples. you can, in theory, use something like PandaDoc, which is it's a very powerful tool. We use it as well. And I'm not saying that you will get away from having a tool that helps you manage documents, because, for example, an NDA is not a quote, and you need something of a signature for that. And for that, tools like PandaDoc are perfect. But if you were to do proposals on PandaDoc using this idea, you will have to set up the integration, because if not, imagine the rep, or even worse, someone that is just dedicated to do proposals, will have to source the data about the company, about the contacts that are going to get the proposal. Obviously, the pricing table, all of that will have to set up there, and you will have to pull the information from the CRM, either manually or through integrations, and maintain that. And then somehow, which is also part of the integration, associate all that, the deal, right, the quote, to the deal and the contacts back to HubSpot, so you can see it on your deal or your panel. All of that happens here. All those associations happen automatically when you are in HubSpot. If you go to your client, if you go to your company panel or company property, or object, sorry, record, that's what the word, record, or contact record, or the deal record, all of those objects will have these quote associated to it. So you can see it from many multiple places. Obviously, the status, the information about what got quote. And Miranda kind of like highlighted there, but the fact that you have your product catalog doesn't mean that the person that is building the quote can't change the prices, right? So it is a great balance between, this is the price points that we have as a company, but you are capable of changing the terms, the length, the value itself. Obviously, this is where you apply the discounts and you change the tax code. And some of the products that you can set up, if you have multiple currencies on the portal, you can set up prices in, let's say, US dollars and maybe euros or things like that. So you can preload that. All of that happens on the back end as well. Um, and also the experience of the follow-up, I think, is another one that is great. You probably have seen it if you use something like DocuSign. Once you create that quote and send it over to the person that has to sign, and you can sign as well as a company, then you have all that tracking that usually happens on tools like DocuSign, right? You can know when someone sees the quote, you can know when someone signed the quote, and obviously if you sign it as well, you move that hurdle. But the most important thing is that these other CPQ tools as well will have an integration with a tool like Stripe or a payment processing, because at the end of the day, the main reasons you want to digitize this is because once someone signs, you want them to set up a payment method, which in the case of these product quotes can be a credit card, or for larger deals, typically it's more of a draft from the bank account. That can happen directly on HubSpot. Someone set up the data and you get paid right away, which I think you obviously is perfect for situations where that pretty much that triggers the delivery. So all that complexity, while it looks super simple there, can be handled on the quote product very well. Yeah.
Virginia, to answer your question, oh, I'm not sharing anymore. Let me go back to it. To answer your question, though, you add the discounts in right here on the quote. So when you're adding in your products from the product library, these are the ones that I added into the quote. Then you can put the unit discount in right there.
Yeah. And you can set it up by percentage or by value, right? So sometimes
Yeah.
people discount by value, sometimes discount by percentage. And you can do a total discount on the total value of the project, right? Sometimes that you don't discount at the item level, you discount at the total value of the project. So you have those extra lines there. One thing that I really like about all this is that, and the only thing that is close to it that I have used, right? Maybe Deal Hub or other of the CPQ things do it, is that it truly calculates in real time the total cost of the contract, which is what you can see there, the total contract value. Because sometimes it's very hard to answer the question, well, I have one-time payments, I have subscription payments. What is the total cost of this? So you have that nice line at the end, including taxes, discounts, fees, in one contract value. Another thing that I like, that is appropriate for projects where you don't have a recurrent payment, rather you work by milestones or specific moments on times, is the payment schedule option that allows you to say, we will need 50% to get started, and the other 50% will be paid at specific moments in times based on completion of tasks, right? More for web projects, for example. That's what I've seen that. So very flexible tool. The only like thing that I will complain, if you want to call it that way, where there's more opportunity, is that it's not a great tool for proposals, right? And again, this will only make sense to those of you that are in the nitty gritty of how B2B projects are sold. Um, Typically, when a sales rep have a conversation, they will start with a proposal that has some scenarios and some high level pricing where the buyer will choose from, and then they will move into an actual quote or a combination of master service agreement plus scope of work or contract that is actually the one that gets signed and paid for. So I think this tool right now is great for scenarios where you already have that defined very well, very standard scope of works, productized services, because the templates will have the copy and the scope already set up, and you have some flexibility to change the scope through the description of the products that you add to the quote. But it's not as great when you're working on proposals, because there's still not an easy way as you create the quote to change things about it beyond the description that you have on the product. And it's not it doesn't have a lot of formatting options, if I want to call it that way. So I think one big opportunity still is that eventually being able to create quotes that behave more like proposals. I think that's in that space, PandaDoc is a stronger option. If you're heavy on proposals, they have to be heavily customized from the template. And then the final quote probably makes more sense to do so on using HubSpot.
Awesome. Did you have anything in the platform you wanted to go through?
Not really. If you can show just from here, Miranda, I will appreciate that. Just to give everyone a little bit of an understanding on this one as well, is what happens when someone signs or approve, or even better, set up a payment method on the quote. That's one thing that I want to highlight. So if you exit this one, please.
Yeah.
Great. And on the Commerce Hub, on the Commerce Hub's menu, yeah, I want to highlight two areas here. We don't have to dive into them, but you can see that you have invoices, payments, and subscriptions. So we will not have time to dive into them in a lot of detail, but this is another great thing that happens automatically that I want to highlight. First, when you get a quote signed, typically you will mark the deal close won. That's great, right? You get the payment, the deal is won, so you don't have to do the extra step of going back to your CRM and mark a deal won. But the other thing that is important is that if, for example, you have a project where you are quoting a one-time charge, but you're not charging right away, the next logical stage is to create an invoice so you can charge the project. And so depending on your configuration, you can set up invoices from quotes, or you can just set up invoice directly from HubSpot. So this is more in the realm of what you will do in tools like QuickBooks or Xero or all these other accounting tools. But again, from the perspective of the seller, allows you to set up invoices that already have the products that you set up on HubSpot, and that's powerful. But better yet, typically, if you set up the quote in a way that it gets charged automatically for the project, then you immediately set up the invoice, and record the payment. That's what the payment section does. So you will be able to send to your client the invoice and the evidence or receipt of the payment, and you will have records of that on HubSpot. And all of that will be, again, associated to the deal, associated to the quote, instead of having all that information in separate systems like QuickBooks or Xero, with the ability of integrating with those systems so you can push that information to your accounting system, because typically, right, this is great for managing what happened, but at the end of the day, your accounting will happen on something like QuickBooks, not on HubSpot. And finally, the reason I wanted you, Miranda, to highlight subscriptions is because there are some cases where what is being quoted, it's a long-term subscription, even open-ended or for 12 months. And so a subscription is not the same as an invoice or a payment, right? In a subscription, you set up the rules of the charge, right? You say, I'm going to charge every month X amount of dollars for 12 months. And that's part of what is being described on the quote. And if the client approves it or set up a payment method, then a subscription is created that matches the conditions of the quote. And obviously, every month, based on the subscription, a new invoice gets created. And if you set it up in a way that the client automatically pays, an automatic payment gets also recorded. And all those objects get tied to the deal, right? So again, very easy to manage. If you have a business that charge on a monthly basis, you will be able to leverage the CPQ tool to manage your quotes, your subscriptions, your invoices, and the payment of those invoices, and tie all that together to the deals.
Awesome. This is also where that the Commerce Hub analytics live that I mentioned in the presentation. I'm not sure if it'll have, this is our like demo account, so it doesn't have any data in it. But this is kind of those pre-built reports and analytics that you can easily reference.
The only thing that I want to highlight from there, as you said, Miranda, if you open up the Commerce suite, right? No, where it says new, and you just open up the layer, please.
Oh, yep.
There you go. So just in the menu, like the rest of the analytic tools, what I like about this one is that how those standard reports are set up in a way that you can go through the typical questions that the CEO or the CFO, maybe in this case, or the sales organization will have about what's going on with quotes, with subscriptions, with payments, with invoices, right? The typical questions about invoices are, do we have open invoices that are overdue, right? What are the balances? What is the status? You can get reports all about that. For quotes, typically you want to know how many of them got created, how many of them got accepted, right? Which ones are pending on approval, which ones got expired and need to be reissued. For subscriptions, typically you want to know, what is the total value of the subscriptions, the new ones, the ones that that they churn or expire. And for payments, obviously, as well, the total amount of revenue they're actually getting, which is, the closest that you can get to actual revenue month over month. So they are set it up in a nice way. And just like with any other reporting tool, the reports for Commerce Hub can be customized, and they can be, you can create brand new custom reports from scratch. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess if you have any, questions about anything we've talked about, feel free to pop them in the chat. And yeah, I think that concludes this event. Thank you so much for everyone who joined. And again, join Demand Gen Hug for future events.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Emilio.
Thank you so much. And thank you for participating. Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right.